Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's Friday. Got to get down on Friday and it's my favourite time of the week, of course. And you know why that is. It's because it's time for my Wrestlers of the Week on Shantae. What does that mean? Now obviously in the whole lockdown, no fans era, there's been a bit of a dip in quality just because that's how it is. But this week, there were some really good wrestling matches. It may have been the most sort of normal feeling week of any week that we've had so far since the lockdown began. There's been good matches in WWE on various different brands, there's been good matches in AEW, there's been good matches in Japan. So without any further ado, let's just crack on and take a look at my honourable mentions. 3 big honourable mentions this week. It's a shame for all of them for different reasons. Buddy Murphy did double duty on Raw, but it's a shame for him because not only did he lose one of those matches, but also Seth Rollins has found a new favourite boy toy in the form of Austin Theory. Sorry, buddy. Next up, Ricochet. Good news for him. Had a really good match this week. Bad news for him. It was on main event. And it's Ricochet, one of the best high flyers ever. And finally, Michael Elgin is an honourable mention. He had a good match on Impact with Sami Callihan. Good news because it was a good match. Bad news because it's Michael Elgin was the joke I had written down there. Yeah, we'll keep it in, I guess. I've got a death wish. But now on to the top 10. And number 10 is one of my boys, one of my little boys in the wrestling world. One of those wrestlers that I feel is someone who could make, or no, not who could make it to the very top, someone who should make it to the top, but probably won't because there's just so many wrestlers around these days and so much wrestling, especially in WWE. But this guy's name, picking up 1 point this week, is El Hijo del Fantasma. He is otherwise known, of course, as King Cuerno in Lucha Underground, where he became my boy for no reason other than the fact that, like, he's really good, but the main reasons that he's my boy is because he was doing a hunter gimmick in Lucha Underground. It was quite cool and comic book, and he came out with antlers on his head, and he was hunting down his prey. I think Phoenix was his prey at one point. Fair enough. The other reason, really nice suicide dive, just straight as an arrow, right through. One of the best suicide dives I've ever seen, up there I think with Dragon Lee. So that's why Fantasma's my boy, but apart from that, really good match as well this week in the Interim Cruiserweight Championship tournament against Akira Tozawa. And another big reason he makes it onto this list is because he won the match, and therefore Fantasma has, I think, won his block, his group in the Interim Cruiserweight Championship tournament. He'll be heading to the final to face one of Kushida, Drake Maverick, or Jake Atlas. It's gonna be really tricky seeing who's gonna win that thing. I know that everyone's saying it's gonna be Drake Maverick, but I'm not so convinced. Like, my heart says it should be, but my head's just, there's some nagging doubts in there. Anyway, this is about Fantasma. Great performance this week against a great opponent in Akira Tozawa, and he picked up the victory as well. You can't say fairer than that. Next up, we're gonna go to DDT, my home promotion, where of course I'm a 2-time DDT Ironman Heavy Metalweight champion. But apart from that, we're going to talk about Saki Akai. Now, Akai is a wrestler that I'd never heard of, to be honest, before this week. And then she had a match this week, which was a good match. And I thought, oh, she's a good wrestler. And then I did a bit of research, found some comments about the match from people who know more about DDT than I do, despite it being my home promotion. And they said that this pretty much was her best match ever, and everyone seemed quite shocked because she's not normally this good. And I thought, well, that deserves some points on Wrestlers of the Week then, doesn't it? Having your best match ever during such trying times as well, in the face of pretty consistent criticism, it seems. So fair play, Akai. Great week for you. She defeated Saori Anou in a match where you could tell that Anou was the more wrestler of the two, if that makes sense. And from what I can glean, it seems like a lot of people feel as though Akai is basically in the spot that she is because of how glamorous she is and because of her looks, rather than, you know, any sort of innate wrestling ability. I kind of, if I'm right here, I kind of see comparisons to someone from maybe the Divas era. In fact, Owen, who's editing this video, said it's almost like if Kelly Kelly had a 5-star match. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Not as ridiculous as that scenario, but it's sort of on the way to that, I guess. A wrestler who's not normally thought of as being that good, having a really good match. In fact, I'm going to read out some choice comments that I've found on the internet. So Roach says, this match shows just how much Saki has improved, as she was leading the charge in some great finishing sequences. Saki has really intrigued me lately. This match series she's done has been very good. Makai Club, I thought it was Makaj Club, but there's like a little bit of dirt on my laptop that made the I look like a J. Bit embarrassing. Makai Club says, Saki Akai has genuinely improved over the past year, not just with the character work, but offensively as well. She is much more smooth and creative. And finally, let's end on a heartfelt quote here from a user called Rudikov, who says, I'm kind of proud for her, not gonna lie. That surely was Saki's best performance I've seen. She is no more just your glamour model or gorgeous mistress. She is a real superstar now. His heart's in the right place. Moving on now to number 8, and a much more familiar face for me. Well, not familiar face, familiar mask, because we're talking about 1/3 of Death Triangle, Rea Phoenix. Phoenix had a really impressive singles match this week on Dynamite against Orange Cassidy. It had a really eye-catching start, I guess I should say, with Phoenix trying to replicate that insane spinning kick from last week, but Orange Cassidy was ready for it and just sort of stepped back like that, and it worked. But apart from the match being good, which it was, I mean, Phoenix was on top form as he always is, but apart from that, the match kind of hit the headlines for the wrong reasons. There were 2 reasons that I can really think of. First of all, and I agree with this one fully, a lot of people felt like the finish of the match with the interference by Kip Sabian was a little bit not like AEW. It was a bit reminiscent of some of WWE's more lazy segments during go-home shows for themed events. That's because, of course, Sabian came out with the ladder, saying, like, really hammering home the point, there's a ladder match this weekend, got on the ladder, was tipped off the ladder after the distraction. You know what I mean? It all seemed to be very kind of WWE. Not good WWE booking, it kind of seemed like the lazy side of WWE booking. And the second reason, of course, was that dive, that horrible landing off the dive that Phoenix made to the outside, where he came up a bit short, or everybody was a bit too far away to catch him. Just splattered hard on the floor. I've seen reports that apparently he's going to be okay for Double or Nothing on Saturday, which is great news because I'm really looking forward to his involvement in that ladder match. But yeah, that was a scary moment, that, and it just goes to show that when you do all these kind of high-risk moves, you are always putting yourself in danger of a landing like that. Thankfully, he's all right, but man, it looked painful. Number 7, his opponent, Orange Cassidy. Even though Orange Cassidy lost the match, I feel as though he impressed more. I feel like it was his match, he was in control of it, and it was another example of the effectiveness of Orange Cassidy. What I mean by that is, obviously, we don't often see a lot of his moves because he's really lazy and he doesn't try, but when he does try, he's insane. He's so good, and it's really, really fun to see. As well as that, this match reminded me just how varied Orange Cassidy's arsenal is. He's got strikes, he's got a whole smorgasbord of high-flying moves and jumping, twisting DDTs and all that sort of stuff, and he blends it really seamlessly into his matches. This was really nice to see. Orange Cassidy's best outing, of course, since that match against Pac, which was off the chain, if I can say that, even though I'm really white. And yeah, I just thought really, really good performance from Orange Cassidy. Despite losing, I came away feeling that it was more his match, if that makes sense. We'll see what he does on Saturday as well. I'm guessing he'll have 1 or 2 comical spots, but at the same time, I hope he does kind of bust out a little bit and show us what he can do. Number 6, it just keeps on going, doesn't it? It just keeps on going. It's none other than Drake Maverick. Drake has really been hitting the headlines recently by really taking care of his own status in WWE. We know he might be getting released soon, but on the other hand, if he wins this thing, then he's back in. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes in terms of actual deals that have been made, but it all seems a little bit shady to me. However, I was certainly in my feelings a little bit about this match. It was really, really good. And, you know, Drake in the end just said, I've got to be nice for what? And just beat Kushida. Right, those are maybe the worst series of jokes I've ever done, if you caught them, but I tried my best and I had to improvise it, so please be proud of me. The match was a good one, it really built, and we all wanted Drake Maverick to win, of course, given this whole storyline. I saw people commenting on, I think it was on our Cultaholic Facebook group maybe, but it was probably said elsewhere on the internet as well. I saw a few people saying Drake has shooted himself into a work. Rather than working himself into a shoot, he released that very heartfelt video when he got released and seems to have shooted himself possibly back into a position in WWE. We don't know. It remains to be seen. But as I was saying, the match built and built and built, and in the end, eventually, Drake just said, right, that's enough, just hold on, we're going home. There's another one. That one was too obvious. And beat Kushida for the emotional victory. But now the intriguing thing is obviously what's going to happen next, because obviously Atlas, Maverick and Kushida are all tied. They're going to have a match to determine who on earth goes to face Phantasma in the final. Now, because Atlas has been so nice to Maverick, I'm kind of thinking that he might turn heel and like cheat to cost Maverick the match or something. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see where that goes, but this could go in various different directions, and each one of them could be realistically very dramatic and compelling. So that's a sign of good booking, I think. And a lot of that is not just down to the booking team themselves, but down to Drake Maverick too. So well done, Drake Maverick. A great week for him. He continues to roll on and survive and cling on to his WWE status. We'll see where it goes in the future. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. Number 5, he can slam a tornado, he can dry up a sea. When he lives for the moment, can't remember the last line. That's right, it's Matt Hardy himself, who had, on Dynamite this week, in the main event, the best Matt Hardy singles match I can remember for quite some time. This was really, really good stuff. Matt Hardy taking on Sammy Guevara and proving that he can still put together a very compelling match. Obviously, he's not quite as quick and nimble as he used to be, but at the same time, he's Matt Hardy. He oozes character with everything that he does. This match had some genuinely convincing near falls, and then obviously he won with the twist of fate at the second time of asking. Then he fetched a chair from ringside because he's still so heartbroken over V1 or version 1 being Vanguard 1, bloody hell, being destroyed at the hands of the Inner Circle. In fact, look at that picture there. That's from a shot of him mourning the loss of Vanguard 1. Looks kind of jubilant in a weird sort of Matt Hardy way though, doesn't he? Maybe that's because he's unlocked the angry potential within him, and that's going to serve him well in the Stadium Stampede match on Saturday. I can't emphasize how excited I am for that match, and that excitement was only raised even a little bit more by the finishing sequence of Dynamite. The last segment of the show saw the Inner Circle and the Elite have a big old brawl on the football field, with Matt Hardy joining in from the arena, rushing over there, and yeah, it was just really entertaining. Capped off, of course, by the return, the 100-yard dash by Hangman Page into the big lariat on Jake Hager. And yeah, everything's built really nicely. I'm very much looking forward to that one. Next up, let's go to Dragon Gate, or All Japan. I'll explain what I mean. This week's number 4 is Susumu Yokosuka. So basically what's happened here is Yokosuka, a very experienced guy in his early 40s, I think. He is currently the junior heavyweight champion of All Japan Pro Wrestling. So I was thinking, I've never really heard him mentioned too much when I've been looking at the All Japan roster. That's because he's a Dragon Gate guy who went over to All Japan to partake in a tournament for the vacant junior title and only went and won the damn thing. Inconvenient, but that's probably a good thing because it's given us matches like the one we saw this week, which was this week's, I think, most epic match. It went like 20 plus minutes. It was really good stuff. It was the sort of match you'd expect to maybe see on a Japanese pay-per-view. Maybe not quite on the high level of some of the top level matches, but it was certainly along the similar sort of lines. Susumu took on Hikaru Sato and successfully defended his title, and yeah, it was just a really good match. It was that sort of pay-per-view almost style match, long, well developed, and it just made me miss those kind of matches, those kind of shows, big Japanese pay-per-views with like loads of people packed into the building. And it's one of just many aspects of wrestling that has been really affected by the current situation. But while I was doing a bit of extra research on Susumu Yokosuka, I did find out something that'll just raise the mood a little bit. So it turns out that Yokosuka isn't his actual surname, it's the town that he's from in Japan. Why? Well, that's because Susumu's real surname is Mochizuki, the same as Masaki Mochizuki, one of the big names on the Dragon Gate roster. So apparently years ago, they had a match to decide who gets to keep their surname, and Susumu lost. Poor guy. That's like if AJ Styles turned up in WWE at the same time that Joey Styles was there, and they had a match to decide who would keep the name Styles, and then Joey Styles lost and had to be called Joey New York for the rest of his tenure there. So just a little bit of fun there, just a little bit of a story there. Now on to number 3, a man who was sadly released from his WWE contract this week. Oh, it's Drew Gulak. Gulak's just had a weird week, hasn't he? I mean, on SmackDown last Friday, he had a great match against Daniel Bryan, a deliberately very technical match, deliberately very low on strikes and brawling, and just showed exactly what he can do and why he's one of the best grapplers in WWE at the moment, or up until very recently. And despite losing the match, it still seemed as though Gulak's affiliation with Daniel Bryan was just doing his stock wonders. He was really rocketing up the roster a little bit by just being associated with such an all-time great, and not only that, but by really holding his own with him in the ring and having some great matches. A lot of people were saying, why don't they go for the tag team titles together? They'd be a great tag team, and I fully agreed with that as well. And then he got released after such a good match on SmackDown as well. I just don't understand, but I thought, it was only right to recognize what a great and exciting match that was and give him a load of points for it. Sorry, Drew. I don't even really know what else to say about Gulak here. I hope that he ends up somewhere really good for him where he can express his creativity and have really good matches once again. Now on to number 2, his opponent, Daniel Bryan. So Bryan got the win. Obviously the biggest story surrounding the match was the fact that Gulak got released, and the WWE on social media referred to Gulak as Daniel Bryan's training partner, which was just weirdly disrespectful. But on the bright side, of course, the match was a fantastic one, and Daniel Bryan won the match, which means he progresses in the Intercontinental Championship tournament, which hopefully, as long as Bryan stays in it, he should have some really good matches. In fact, is he the favourite to win the tournament? I know Nakamura's in there as well. I know Styles is in there. I'd like to see Bryan take on either of those guys in the final. I think that could be really good. And yeah, I don't even know what else to say, really. I mean, the match was excellent. If you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Expert mat work from the two, expert levels of grappling, elite level wrestling psychology, amateur wrestling style psychology as well. It looked very real at points, but it still kept the whole sort of pro wrestling element of entertainment with it as well. The pacing was just phenomenal in this one. So that's a shame, but it has got both guys a load of points on this league table, and hopefully it's not too long before either of them pick up some more points in the near future, especially Dragula. But now there's only one more wrestler left to talk about, and he is my wrestler of the week. It's none other than the Spanish God himself, and I think it's his first time being wrestler of the week as well, so I'm delighted to say that my 10 points this week goes to Sammy Guevara. Now yes, Guevara lost his match against Matt Hardy, but I'm not saying that he carried Matt Hardy through the match. Hardy was still clearly very capable, but Sammy Guevara kind of took the lead. He was bumping all over the place for the older man, making him look like an absolute boss, and making Sammy look like an absolute boss for being so selfless as well. His offense just shone as always. I love the part where he got on the apron and mocked Matt Hardy's and then into his ridiculous 180 stunner attempt, which I think Matt Hardy blocked actually. There were just some really nice sequences in this match, many of which revolved around Sammy's incredible athleticism. There were also some really good false finishes off the shooting star press attempts. He missed one and rolled through into a twist of fate, which he sold right on his head and then kicked out. He missed another one where Matt Hardy got the knees up and he landed on them, and that led eventually to a second twist of fate, again sold like a madman right on top of his head. Don't know why he does that. Looks cool. Be careful, please. And that was enough to give Matt Hardy the win. But not only that, Guevara had probably the best match on AEW Dark this week. Dark was a good show. It had quite a lot of matches on it, largely between established guys on the roster and then enhancement guys who they've obviously brought in during this whole pandemic. But Sammy's match was probably the best one on the show, and I'm saying that with increasing regularity. Sammy's match, probably the best one on the show. Sammy this week, probably one of the most impressive wrestlers around. And I think it's only right that this week, that has led to him being my wrestler of the week. So congratulations, Sammy Guevara, you are indeed my wrestler of the week. Now, let's see what that does to our old league table. As you can see, the top three is unchanged, Omega, Moxley and Tanaka, but there is Sammy Guevara up into fourth place, just ahead of Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. And Darby Allin's getting up there as well. He's pretty near the top two. You can really see the AEW and WWE bias kind of shining through a bit because they've been putting on the most shows out of everybody. But still in the top 20, we can see some New Japan faces there like Shingo, Takahashi and Okada. And then Daniel Bryan sneaking in at the bottom there just ahead of Lance Archer. And by the way, Archer could be picking up some big points next week. So that's it for Wrestlers of the Week. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and do as well leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. Thanks once again, and I'll see you very soon.